Wow, that was a little embarrassing with me sitting right here. But I am delighted to be speaking at the American Sustainable Business Council. I applaud them for what they do, and as you said, we have a tremendous amount of synergy. Many of you know that I am a cancer survivor, a uterine cancer survivor, only it took me 2 years and 8 doctors to get a proper diagnosis. I got in the stirrups more times than Roy Rogers. And the cure for my cancer was a radical hysterectomy, which is a difficult operation for any woman, but for one who has never had children like myself, it's a particularly bitter pill to swallow. And I needed to somehow make sense out of the senseless, so I wrote what became the New York Times bestseller, Cancer Schmancer. And then when I went on my book tour, I discovered that what happened to me happened to millions of Americans by means of misdiagnosis and mistreatment, and for many, unfortunately, late-stage cancer diagnosis as a consequence. By the grace of God, I was still in stage 1, and I feel like I got famous, I got cancer, and I lived to talk about it. So I'm talking. I realized that the book was not the end, but just the beginning of what has now become a life mission. And so I started the Cancer Schmancer movement. This is a 3-pronged organization that's dedicated to early detection. Stage 1 is the cure, and prevention. Because if over 90% of cancer is environmental, so the more we can change our lifestyle, the better off we are, and policy change, which we're also very active in, and I'll get into that later. But as she said, we very successfully got the Gynecologic Cancer Education and Awareness Act passed, the first of its kind in U.S. history, and by unanimous consent, which means, thank you, all 100 senators said, yes, we will sign on to this. And I actually remember there was a time when I sent out emails to 10 different senators, and I said, let's not make this a battle of the balls, because the only ones that lose are the ladies. So I don't know whether anybody's ever really talked to them, so frankly, but somehow I think it worked. And it's just when you have right on your side and you're tenacious, then you can move mountains. Helen Keller, who, obviously was faced with many things that other people might have been held back by, wrote that, no pessimist ever, discovered a new star or sailed to an uncharted land or opened a new heaven in the human spirit. Women of the 20th century challenged society with their suffrage movement, saying that it was high time that we got involved in government, that we had a say in our government. We were, after all, more than half the population. And then later in the 20th century, of course, women's lib came along and demanded that women have more of a equal place in the workplace. And then Hillary, of course, ran for the Democratic nomination for presidential candidacy and further pushed the ceiling up. And President Obama, his first act of legislation was equal pay for equal work. And so now it's actually on the books that you can't pay a woman 75 cents to the dollar. So here we stand, and I'm speaking more to the women in the room, but as well to the men, because nothing can be accomplished without our brothers. We stand on the precipice of a new dawn. And while women continue to be the caregivers of the spouse, the children, and the elders in almost every home nationwide, because they have this innate nature to give life and to nurture. I think the time has come for women in particular to apply that nature, that God-given gift, into both our consumerism and our business. It's we, the women, who have to shift the trajectory of unhealthy lifestyle towards a new paradigm. Let's talk about American health for a minute. We rank 37 in the world by the World Health Organization. Why is that? Well, as I said before, over 90% of cancer is environmentally caused, and over 80% of the products that we use on a daily basis have chemicals that are either unknown or unregulated. The Toxic Substances Control Act hasn't been updated in 34 years. And the President's Cancer Panel report of 2010 states that cancer is not going to go anywhere, not until we clean up our acts. So is there any wonder why? 1 out of 2 men will get cancer in their life. 1 out of 3 women will get cancer in her life. The children of today, for the first time in U.S. history, have been predicted to not live as long as their parents. And the babies are being born pre-polluted with 200 to 300 chemicals found in the umbilical cord. Women's breast milk have the highest amount of flame retardant in it from any other woman on the planet. This is unacceptable and unsustainable. We're slipping down a rabbit hole towards our own demise. Since Nixon waged the war on cancer, trillions of dollars have been poured in by the public and private sectors for the research of a cure. Where's the cure? Meanwhile, exposures to carcinogens, pesticides, herbicides, hormones, chemicals, electrosmog, GMOs, radiation bombard our lives daily. Frederick Douglass, a great American, once wrote, "Power concedes nothing without demand. It never has, and it never will." So the jig is up. Once you wake up and smell the coffee, it's hard to go back to sleep. So let me sound the alarm. Cancer Schmancer has a new program. It's called Trash Cancer. And we invite all of you to participate in that. On September 29th, 1,100 households are going to throw what's called a trash cancer party. Trash cancer parties are modeled off of Tupperware parties, only instead of selling plastic, we're selling consumers on the notion of detoxing your home for yourself and your family. And we're asking Americans to take the check, choose, and change challenge to figure out what are you putting in your mouth? What are you putting on your skin? What are you cleaning with? What are you gardening with? And start making different choices, because the most toxic place that we spend the most time in is where? Our homes. And that is the place that we have the most direct, ability to change. And in so doing, reducing our risk of cancer. This is where the responsibility for leadership falls to women and women in business. We women must not follow in the footsteps of our predecessors, but as Ralph Waldo Emerson said, don't take the path and see where it leads, but go where there is no path and leave a trail. That's what we have to do. The 21st century can and must be the century of the woman. We are the caregivers, consumers, and businesswomen. Then we have to go where men have failed. We must excel. No longer can the bottom line be what we have a right to do, but what is the right thing to do? We can lead this nation into a new level of consciousness and good health, which in the long run can be just as profitable and, family friendly. Let we women in business raise the bar and lead with benevolence and compassion. As Robert Browning said, make your reach greater than your grasp, else what's a heaven for? Thank you. Are we going to do a Q&A? Oh, okay. I didn't know. Okay, because I didn't mention the current legislation that Cancer Schmancer is presently involved with Congressman Deutsch, and we're inviting a Republican to join in co-sponsoring the bill. And this is called the C-label bill, which will invite manufacturers, whoever they may be, to prove at their own expense through a third party who will determine by today's standards if the product that they have is considered carcinogen-free. If it is considered carcinogen-free, that would make them eligible to pay the government at a fee to put the government C-free label on their labels. So the consumer doesn't have to go to MIT to be able to know whether they're buying what their inalienable right is in products that will not hurt them. And so I think that I'm very excited about this bill because it doesn't wave a finger at anybody. It doesn't cost the government any money. It actually has the capability to make the government money, and it helps the consumer to give a loud message to business manufacturers as well as elected officials that this is the direction that we want to go to in this new century. Because I've never met a manufacturer that didn't want to sell you. They don't want to kill you, they want to sell you. And I never met an elected official that didn't want to be reelected. So through good old-fashioned all-American consumerism, we can get that message to them. And so we feel very optimistic that this will be the next victory for the Cancer Schmancer movement in terms of policy change. Thank you.
Just to add to that, so we've been in conversation it said it was on. Now maybe it's really on.
Yes.
So, the key piece is, that makes the work that they're doing so unique, as well as the commitment to moving policy change. And as a number of you heard earlier, that is why the American Sustainable Business Council was formed, was to really drive with business voices. And what normally shoots down policies like the one that Fran's talking about is that certain businesses, right, certain particularly chemical companies and the like, say this will kill jobs and it's bad for business. So what we've been saying and what we're going to say together is bad for whose business? Not bad for the hundreds of thousands of businesses that know you could do this without toxic chemicals. You could produce greener chemicals through greener chemistry, sustainable materials, and new products. It's not like this is rocket science anymore. It's being done every day, whether it's cosmetics, foods, clothing, mattresses, the like. Products can be produced without toxic chemicals. So, just to start where it'll end is, if you like this idea of this campaign, and as business leaders you want to work with us to help push through this legislation together, this is what we're mapping out next week with Trash Cancer, is how ASBC and Trash Cancer can help to move this legislation through together, with business leaders stepping up to help move consumers and businesses. So, just to note that there's an assignment after we're done here, yeah? Okay, questions? Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Carol McLeod, and I'm from Charlotte. And first, I just want to thank you so much for doing what you're doing. My husband, I have a small business here, and my husband is battling brain cancer. very serious, and it's not genetic, they're telling us, but we don't know where or why it's coming from. So I just want to applaud you for what you're doing. I'm going to support this organization any way I can.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to make that comment.
I want to address that, and let me just preface by saying that I'm not a doctor, though I haven't even played one on TV. But just a word of advice. It seems like brain cancer is indeed on the rise, and what I do, and this is not necessarily substantiated by any research, because, you know, if we wait for who's going to pay for research that's going to put some businesses out of business, possibly. But cordless phones in your home have more radiation than cell phones. Get rid of them if you have them. That's what I did. If you want to keep them, it's your prerogative. Also, I never hold a cell phone to my ear, ever. I use the earpiece, or I have it on, speaker. That's it. Right now, we're living in a world that has a tremendous amount of what's called electrosmog. Electrosmog is what is invisible but all around us, that comes from everything that's electrical and electronic. And we are electrical, the human being, but we are in complete harmony with the earth. Electrosmog is not, and it screws our electric circuitry up. So the more we can distance ourselves from it, I mean, I know people that unplug everything when they go to sleep. The TV, the VCR, the computer, the Wi-Fi, everything. And I myself have an old school princess phone that just plugs in the wall. I have a whole, expensive system in my house, but I also have that because, when all else fails, that's what is the most reliable and the least invasive to my health. So this goes hand in hand with what trash cancer is all about. It is so pervasive, our lifestyle is so toxic, and we are at such a tipping point that if we don't start switching up our acts, start looking at every single thing and using your instincts. Don't wait for somebody to tell you. If it looks like a duck and it sounds like a duck, it's probably a duck. So if it seems like it's not so great, but I haven't really heard anything or whatever, we've all heard the rumor that cell phones maybe give off too much radiation. And this holding it to the ear, for me, it's one of the things that I've crossed off the list. You may want to consider it for yourselves.
Others? Right? No.
Oh, here, this.
Here we go.
Hi, Fran. I'm thrilled with what you're doing, and I'm sure you're very familiar with Annie Leonard.
Yes.
I think she's fabulous. Anyhow, one of the things I've kind of run into is that people assume that because it's out there, it's advertised on TV, that it's safe, that the government has tested it. And this is the great myth, and I try to tell people, that doesn't, just because it's out there doesn't mean, that they think they really have trust that, somebody's looking out for them. How do you sort of address this? And obviously, you're fighting all the advertising on TV, which of course, you know the power of TV. How do you sort of fight that and get people past that, that misconception? And then we of course have the whole thing about, whether organic food is better for you that just came out. So, I heard that and wanted to scream. So how do you deal with all of that? And how do you plan to, overcome that?
Well, I scream a lot too, and believe me, when I scream, it's like clear the room. But you mentioned a couple of things. So first of all, the power of advertising, and not only advertising, but there are a lot of very trusted brands that our grandmothers used and our mothers used and now we use. And there is something about it that makes us feel all warm and fuzzy inside. And the advertising for these products and manufacturers make us feel like they're part of the fabric of America, and they operate in what's our best interest. Nothing could be further from the truth. Unfortunately, I think that capitalism has run amok, and the many manufacturers are more concerned with the profit margin that they can offer their shareholders than what they owe to the customers that made them a successful business. So I think that Cancer Schmancer's Trash Cancer program is coming out with a major public service announcement campaign that is going to get the conversation going with America, where we're going to address the Check, Choose, and Change challenge, and also to understand that advertising comes from Madison Avenue, and celebrities get paid a lot of money to tell you that this is a good product. And that has nothing to do with whether it really is a good product. So I think that it is an important aspect that we are definitely going to address, because as I said, once you wake up and smell the coffee, it's hard to go back to sleep. And the more we make noise, the more people will begin to start questioning all of these things. And what was the other thing?
Well, about the organic.
Oh, yes, the organic thing. If you eat a strawberry that isn't organic, you might as well be eating a sponge soaked in pesticides, because that's what it is. Strawberries don't even have any skin on them. And when they get sprayed with pesticides, it goes right into the flesh, and you're eating that. You can't wash it off. It's in it. So, the way we farm is completely unsustainable. The fact that we use so many pesticides and herbicides that are, attempting to kill invasive insects, but actually are killing us and also destroying the earth. If you eat spinach today, you would need to eat more than 20 times the amount of spinach that you would have eaten maybe 10 years ago, because that's how depleted of nutrients the food that we're eating is, because they're killing the earth and the infrastructure that's vital to the nutrients of plants. It's not just the particular insect that they don't want invading their food. It's everything. It's the worms. It's the bacteria in the soil. And, at the end of the day, if you start eating organic, you won't believe how much better it is and how much better fruit and vegetables taste. It's said that when you go to the supermarket, go to the right side of the supermarket or the left, because that's the only place where fresh food is, and steer clear of everything processed. If it doesn't look like what it is, then it's not a whole food. So, everything old is new again, and I think that eating simpler, a lot of the reason why Americans are the fattest people in the world is because we're so depleted of nutrients. So we're actually eating more stuff that looks like food but isn't nutritious, and we're starving ourselves to death. So we keep eating. And if you start thinking about that and start choosing things that are grown to be highly nutritious, then you'll see you won't be hungry as much, and you'll naturally lose weight, and you'll be much healthier, because the body immune system cannot operate at an optimum when it's constantly being compromised. You're taking out of the bank, but you're not making any deposits. And eventually, the well runs dry, and you're running on fumes, and one thing happens in your life that stresses you out or traumatizes you, and the next thing you know, you've taken ill, or you have a bunch of autoimmune issues that are becoming more and more prevalent, particularly with women. So, Hippocrates said, food is the cure, and the cure is food. So
you just tying it, it just ties it all together to remember that these issues are all connected. So we've got a sustainable agriculture working group to try and deal with this because food is connected to health. We have a healthcare working group because healthcare is connected. So we have the toxic, it's a hard thing to do to hold this all together, but that's the piece. It's the whole system together.
The whole earth is one big living organism, and we're all interdependent with each other, not only human to human, but every single level of what makes this planet us is required, from clean air, clean water, clean land, and all the life that's in it. If you remove one thing from the equation, you're going to have a ripple effect that, is going to impact our own safety and well-being. They say that, because of the electrosmog, the bees are getting all screwed up. And, if we lose bees, we'll probably have like 3 months to live, because there won't be any kind of reproducing of plant life. And, we think, oh, a bee, big deal. But actually, it is a huge deal. We can't live without the bee.
So with that, we're going to need to move the program, but just to say that there really it's great to have you here speaking, but it's really our time to act together. And there's a campaign before us now, and certainly at the council we'll do what we can and how to connect back to trash cancer and the new policies that we need to move forward together.
If I can just interject,
yes,
go to trashcancer.org, because you may be curious about some of the products that you're presently using. And on trashcancer.org, you can look up a product, and we will tell you on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, whether or not you should steer clear of that and start searching for a new product in the supermarket. And you may not find it right away. And, and don't put pressure on yourself, oh, I got to clear everything out of my house tomorrow, because Rome wasn't built in a day. But start now. The next time you go shopping, try one thing new that's clean and toxic-free, and then keep building from there.
And you have business leaders here who can actually make the next set of products.
And I probably use all their stuff.
There you go. So please join me in warmly thanking Fran Drescher.